Welcome to today's presentation, Passing the Vibe Check, Mastering Discovery and Positioning in Job Interviews. This is a crucial lesson. I'm going to teach you how to drive the interviewing process and take more control over it. So I want to share with you what every interviewing process looks like because guess what? They all look the exact same. And so if I can preempt you with what the interview process is going to look like, and if I can give you guidance on what questions to ask, you are going to know exactly how to sell yourself, and you're going to know exactly how to frame your experiences and prior work experiences in a way that appeals most to the hiring team. And so this is a super valuable, hyper important lesson because it's going to dictate the tone of the interviewing process. And ultimately, what I'm trying to do here is put your destiny in your own hands. So let's go ahead and get started. So, introduction, discovery, and vetting questions are going to change the way you interview, and it's going to change the way that you ask questions. These questions will influence your decision and ensure that you only join the best of the best. Remember, I am not here to lead you astray. I want you to make the best freaking career decision possible. And I'm going to enable you by teaching you what discovery and vetting questions are, or how to conduct the discovery and vetting questions. Most importantly, they also put you in the driver's seat and shift the power dynamic of interviews in your favor. So that's what we're going to go and discuss here in this presentation. And so I want to just get into it. This is dense. This is a dense presentation with a lot of important information, and so let's get right into the uncomfortable truths and the reality of the situation. So 80% of the questions they will ask you in the job interviews are quote unquote vibe checks. So what does this mean? This means all they're really testing you on is um, how do you come across? Are you someone that is easy to get along with? Are you relaxed, confident, and easygoing? Are you the type that they would feel comfortable bringing around their friends and family? That's really what they're trying to vet for. In particular, because this is sales, this is tech sales, so it is a client facing opportunity, a client facing role. But even outside of sales, this is going to be important because even within your own team and your own company, you're going to have to collaborate with a lot of people. You're going to have to communicate with a lot of people. You're going to have to build relationships internally. This is what it's like to work anywhere. And so people really want to hire someone that obviously is not only ambitious and a go-getter. Being a hustler is important, but they also want to hire someone that's going to jive really well with the current culture, the current climate that they have cultivated internally. They don't want to hire any divas that are going to be weird and potentially ruin the environment. And so this is an entry level role. They're not going to be bashing you and grilling you with highly technical questions like coding or sales background, etc. What they will be testing you on is really just how easy is it going to be to bring you on board and coach you and train you and develop you. They just really want someone that's positive and easy to get along with. And so 80% of the questions they ask you are vibe checks. And here is the good news. Every interviewing process is the same. Sure, there's a few little differentiators here and there, a few little differences from company to company, but almost the exact same. And it goes something like this. Round one, recruiter. Round two, the SDR manager, aka the hiring manager. This is the person with the most power. Round three is a panel interview. So if you make it to round three, this means the SDR manager likes you. They just really want to see um, if they're right, if you do really get along with everybody. And so that's what the point of the interview or the panel interview is about. Round four is the final exercise, so some sort of mock call or written exercise. And round five, sometimes they'll add this, is some sort of executive call with someone from the C-suite, so like a co-founder or potentially a VP. Now, again, sometimes these rounds are mixed up. I am seeing some companies move the written exercise, so what would be the final exercise, and bump it up to the top. So just be prepared for anything, but at a high level, most tech companies are going to run this interview process. And in terms of questions that they will ask you, look, in today's presentation, I don't want you to worry too much about the questions they'll ask you. It's the top. I have a document created for you where they basically ask you the same 15 set of questions. And so I have listed that here. And so you don't need to memorize them here today in this presentation, but I will have them for reference, definitely. But one thing I want you to notice about the top 15 questions that they ask is that they are behavioral. Again, they aren't going to be grilling you with sales questions or technical questions or anything like that. This is an entry level role. And so you're not necessarily required to know how to use systems like Salesforce or Outreach or Apollo or Zoom Info. These are sales systems that you will learn on the job. And so they're not going to grill you about it. This is partly why certifications and boot camps that can be really expensive are not requirements for breaking into tech sales or breaking into a lot of tech roles. The reason being is that a lot of it is entry level, and a lot of it you get exposed to on the job. Furthermore, those systems are not really that complex. If you know how to use an iPhone, if you know how to use Google Chrome, you know how to find your way and navigate your way through the internet to get the information that you need, chances are that you already have the technical ability for a lot of the systems that you'd be using day to day in your sales role. And so that is why a lot of the questions tend to be behavioral. And I'll post these questions. However, follow the guidance that I give you on how to structure the answers, which will be in a separate video within this module. Things like the air technique, wrap in a bow technique, etc. Now, I want to start getting into the meat and potatoes of this presentation, which is really going to be around discovery and vetting. But to lay down, to kind of paint the picture here, here's what they're looking for at a high level. So, round one, the recruiter. She is the easiest person of them all. She's also the lowest on the totem pole. The recruiter is purely there to qualify you and ensure that you're actually in the right place. I've alluded to this in other videos, but you would be surprised by how many people are on the internet just spamming their resume, spamming applications anywhere and everywhere to get a job. For a lot of people, all jobs are created equal. A job is a job, period. I just need a job. I personally disagree with that philosophy. I don't think any job is a job. I think that you can get a job, and then you realize that it's a completely toxic work environment. It's a dead end job. So not only are you not getting paid well, but you're also miserable. Your mental health starts to depreciate because you're constantly dealing with a bunch of BS in the workplace. And so to me, not all jobs are created equal. A job is not a job. There's certainly better jobs than others. And that's what I'm trying to instill in you, which is that, we got to do our homework and vet well and do our research. And so the recruiter really just wants to know that you're genuinely interested in tech sales and the role and the company. And so if you can express your excitement well, you'll usually be passed on to the next stage. And by the way, you want to start to develop a good relationship with the recruiter. Recommend treating them with a lot of respect and courtesy, because they can actually be really good guides and champions who tell you exactly what you need to do throughout the rest of the interview process. I've worked with great recruiters who I click with. I end up leaning on them for guidance on, like, hey, what are they going to quiz me on during the rest of the interview? What are they going to be looking for? And she just gives me all the insider information. So you want the recruiter on your side, but also recognize that there's no reason to be nervous. They're the lowest on the totem pole. Now, round two, SDR manager. SDR manager is going to be your hiring manager. It is going to be your boss. They have the most leverage and decision making power in this whole interviewing process. And so here's the unique thing about this round. The SDR manager knows, obviously, that this is an entry level role. So he knows you likely don't have the exact skills that they require, such as cold calling experience, tech sales experience, B2B sales experience, etc. It's a great plus if you have those things, but he knows that that's more of like a nice to have, and so he accepts that. He just wants someone who's eager, ambitious, coachable, and reliable. Meaning, if he invests time teaching you and mentoring you, he also can rely on you to fully internalize everything he teaches you, and then you can hit the ground running. In other words, he tells you something and you take the initiative, you internalize it, and you go get it done. You're not someone that's going to be high maintenance. He just wants someone that's smart enough to get it and run with it. And so that's very important. Be a safe bet and have some stories to back up how you've learned other things in the past, or how someone has mentored you or coached you, and how you've used those pointers or advice to become a top performer. If you can prove that to the SDR manager, you're going to pass. Now, once you pass with the SDR manager, generally what I find is that you're in a pretty good place. There's an 80% chance that you're going to get that job, because if the SDR manager likes you, that is huge. And so the SDR manager, if they like you, what they end up doing is they pass you on to the panel interview. The panel interview is usually comprised of 3, maybe 4 other members of the team. Each one interviews you for about 30 minutes. And really, what the point of the panel interview is just more of the same stuff. It's a huge vibe check, because the SDR manager might like you, but the SDR manager, might get overly excited about you, and they recognize that. And so they might miss some of the red flags. And so during the panel interview, it's just another way for them to further vet you and make sure that you're actually as good as you're selling yourself. So a lot of you are going to get really good at selling yourselves, particularly after you watch the videos in this module. So during the panel interview, they're just kind of making sure that you actually are who you say you are and you walk the talk. And so show up as your best self, be easy to get along with, likable, and have those good interview answers, which I've taught you how to formulate. If you do this, you'll pass it easily. The panel interview really isn't difficult. It might seem intimidating because it's a panel interview where a lot of folks are chatting with you, but these interviews tend to be pretty easy because they're vibe checks. So just show up, be yourself, and combine it with everything that I've already taught you. Round 4, the final exercise, usually a mock sales call or cold call exercise, or a written exercise. And then this round also usually about 80% of the time tends to be the offer stage as well. Meaning, if you pass the mock call or the cold email exercise, they'll likely give you an offer. And so I will be putting this in a separate module. This is the final exercise, and I'll be giving you templates. But round 4, really, if you make it this far, you just have to not screw it up. The hard work is already done. And then lastly, round 5. Sometimes this happens, sometimes it doesn't. It really depends on the company. But sometimes there will be an executive call. So someone from the C level, such as a co-founder or the CEO, or another executive, sometimes like the VP of sales. And so the executive phone calls tend to be the easiest. Don't sweat it. The executive call is just the one final call to ensure that you are a good culture fit. They just want to know that you genuinely want to be there. And so have some good answers to show your genuine excitement. These interviews tend to be high level, which means that they're not going to ask you about your technical expertise or your sales expertise. They just want to know that you're cool and pumped to be there. So make sure to come in prepared with information specifically regarding to the company's values and mission. And again, I want to iterate that this is not supposed to be a high pressure interview. In fact, I have found the executive interviews to be the easiest because the executives are so high level that they're not involved in the day to day nitty gritty details. And so they're not going to ask you any crazy detailed questions, but they do want to see a genuine excitement level for the role and particularly for the company. Because again, they want to hire folks that are going to be there long term and that are genuinely pumped. Who wouldn't want to hire people like that, right? And so, last thing here is really follow the interview response formats that I gave you in a separate video. I've already given you the exact formulas so that you can craft your own badass interviewing answers. Things like the key traits, things like the air technique, the secret language of business. Lean into all of that during your interview process and make sure you structure it in with your responses. Now, again, getting deeper and deeper into the meat and potatoes here of what this presentation is about. There comes a moment in each interview stage where, after they're done asking you all their questions, they always pass the mic over to you. And they're like, so what questions do you have for me? Every time. Every time they're gonna ask you that every time. The recruiter's gonna ask you that. The SDR manager's gonna ask you that. The folks in the panel interview are gonna ask you that. So it's gonna come. They will ask you, what questions do you have for me? Look, this is not an opportunity to waste time or to waste the opportunity. This is it's a perfect moment to be intentional. And this is where the discovery and vetting questions come in. And again, look, don't waste the question section opportunity that they give you. Super important. So here's how you can um, maximize that moment and maximize that opportunity through vetting and discovery questions. First off, we want to do discovery every step of the way. What is discovery? This is a long slide, so I want to quickly go over it, but also educate you and help you internalize it. It's not difficult. Discovery questions are a very intentional set of questions that are essentially the pathway to success. By understanding exactly what they're looking for, we will know exactly how to position ourselves and give them what they want to hear. So, by understanding what the hiring team is looking for, this gives us an advantage. We can position ourselves better and as an ideal candidate. By tailoring our answers to align with the interviewer's needs, we demonstrate that we're not only qualified, but that we also understand their goals and their values. And so the point of discovery questions is to ask what they are looking for so we can understand their needs. And then once we understand their needs, guess what? We know how to position ourselves. So without proper discovery, we don't explain ourselves optimally. There's 100 different ways that you can answer questions. We want to answer things in the way that makes sense to them. So let me give you an example. Think about buying a bike. There's many types of bikes out there. There's big bikes, there's small bikes, there's bikes that are meant more for the street, so riding around town. And then there's bikes that are focused on like sports, so BMX bikes. And there's also bikes that are dedicated to mountains and trails and hikes and things like that. So there's mountain bikes, right? Let's assume for a quick moment that you're going into your local store and you want to buy a bike, and I'm the salesperson. I want to ask you more about what your goals are regarding bicycle riding. And so if I'm asking your questions like, what are you going to be using the bike for? What kind of rides do you like to do? Do you like to do easy rides or hard rides? Have you owned a bike before, or is this your first bike? Is the bike for you, or is it for your child? All this information helps me show you what your best options are. And so if you tell me, look, I'm just looking for a small, simple road bike so that my kid, my little boy, can ride his bike around the block. That's it. I just want a simple bike. Boom. Well, then now I just go to the section where the kid bikes are and I show you the very different types of simple street bikes that we have so that you can make your educated decision. What I don't do is I don't say, hey, you're looking for a bike? Well, let me show you all these different bikes that I have. That wouldn't make sense because you're specifically in the market for a kid bike, right? And so the whole point of discovery questions, the message I'm trying to convey here is this. You want to ask similar questions, discovery questions, so that you can better understand what the company's needs are. And then based on their needs, you know what to show them. You know what message to convey to them. If you were coming into the store and you're looking for a kid bike and I take you to the adult, you know, mountain bike section, I'm wasting your time and I'm potentially losing a sale here because I don't understand your needs. Similar concept applies to interviewing. We want to be very intentional when we have the moment to ask them questions. So when they pass us the mic and tell us, hey, what questions do you have for me? Boom. We use this moment to ask an intentional set of questions that is going to give us intel. It's going to give us information and then we use that information to weaponize ourselves and arm ourselves with the proper set of information that'll allow us to sell ourselves better. And so here's just a few examples. I'm going to include this in the module. I'm going to give you a master set of questions that you can ask, but here are just a few examples. What are you looking for in terms of soft skills and hard skills, attitudes and characteristics? What do you want in a candidate basically? What skills should they have? What would be a red flag or a blocker in a candidate? Or what would cause someone to lose points throughout this interviewing process? Really want to know, what they're not looking for, right? Can you share step by step what the rest of the interview process looks like and what you're grading candidates on at each step? So notice how these discovery questions allow us to better understand the whole layout of what they're going to be testing on, what they're going to be grading on, and what they're looking for. That information helps us tremendously because then it allows us to position ourselves better and frame our questions better. Discovery questions are typically asked at round 1 and 2 with the recruiter and the SDR manager so that you can then use that information to prepare for the rest of the interviews, such as the panel, assessment, and even potential calls with the executives. By the way, this is Sales 101. Understanding people's needs and then selling them on a solution that will solve their problems. This is what sales is all about. And in this case, the company is the buyer and you're the seller and you are the product. You're selling yourself. So understanding their needs is very important, and we want to use discovery questions anytime they give us a chance to ask questions. We also want to do vetting at every step of the way. So the difference between discovery and vetting is really an intentional set of questions that'll give us a better understanding of how great the opportunity or how great the company really is. We want to avoid landmines. Remember, I am not here to lead you astray. We're here to win. We're here to get that money bag and put ourselves in a position to succeed for the rest of our lives and hopefully for several years to come. That's what a fruitful career is all about. And so vetting questions makes them sell us on the opportunity. And this also creates a very distinct power shift throughout the interview process where it takes the pressure off of you and it puts that on them. So, in other words, you're not the one showing up to the interview performing, they are. We're both here to sell ourselves, and hopefully, we can agree to the opportunity, and it's a win-win for the both people, both parties. And so, vetting questions subcommunicate that we're not just going to take any opportunity. We maintain control over our destiny and career. And so, these are just a few examples of vetting questions. Again, don't worry about memorizing them here this moment. I'm going to include these in the module so that you can review them. So examples include, who are your top 1 to 2 competitors and what are your company's differentiators? How do we beat them, right? We want to see that this company knows exactly how to sell themselves and that they recognize their competitive advantage. What's quota attainment like across the team? Again, we want to see that people are actually hitting their quota and making money. Aside from giving your reps a list of accounts or a territory, what other tools, data, or dashboards do you provide them with to be successful? And what's a positive or exciting part about coming to this company, joining this team, and selling this product, right? All these questions are meant for us to gain a better understanding of what's truly happening behind the scenes and for them to sell us on the opportunity, right? We're not just going to take any opportunity. We want the best opportunities. And so vetting questions should be asked at every stage of the process. Be sold on the opportunity. Don't just take the opportunity, be sold on it. And best practices, again, they will always ask at the end of each stage, so what questions do you have for me? I personally recommend picking 2 discovery questions and 2 vetting questions per stage. So, in other words, for each person that you chat with, you're usually asking them about 4 questions at the end of each interview, and you're using a mix of both discovery questions and vetting questions. Please do not waste this opportunity at the end to ask questions that aren't going to aid you in your interviewing process. In other words, you're either asking discovery questions or decision making process, aka vetting questions. Every question that you ask either helps you with either or. You're not asking any other questions. No random questions here that don't provide us with information that can't actually help us. All questions must serve the purpose of either doing discovery or vetting. That's it. Good questions also subcommunicate intelligence and strategic thinking. By ending the interview with strong questions, you increase your chances of moving on to the next stage. Whereas random questions subcommunicate messy, uncoordinated thinking, no intentionality. And so I want you to use discovery or vetting questions. That's it. Nothing else. Period. And lastly, I'm sure you get the point. I've been grilling you throughout this entire presentation, but look, we really can't sell ourselves optimally if we don't understand what they're looking for, if we don't understand their needs. Through discovery, we uncover their exact needs and motivations, and then we know how to explain our experiences and position ourselves better. Again, think about going and buying a bike. Vetting gives us a feel for how competent and effective they really are as a team. Really, what we want to do is we want to be surrounded by good people, supportive team, good bosses, and also highly competent, right? Because if we can join a winning team that's also filled with good people, wow, we're going to be set up for success. And so, through the combination of discovery and vetting, not only do we do a terrific job at selling ourselves, but we also increase our chances of joining a great company. And that's what it's all about. Leverage discovery and vetting questions at every stage. Don't go and waste the opportunity at the end by asking pointless, aimless questions that aren't actually going to aid you throughout the rest of the interviewing process.